this is Laura from Feeling Fabulous, and today we're cooking tantalizing tacos. All plant-based, no oil, no butter, just straight beans, Japanese sweet potatoes, corn, some brown rice. I use scallions and some garlic. So mainly it's about 5 ingredients. I use salsa on the side. I garnish with some cherry tomatoes and some salad greens mixed. Very simple and easy. I only use 4 spices, some salt, some pepper, cumin, and chili powder. Easy. I also use, for my tortillas, I use chickpea or almond flour. I use corn. Try not to use the just plain flour tortillas, since now they have more varieties. But you can if you want, if there's nothing else available, or you can make your own. So today I want to tell you about the nutritional value of the foods that you're using today. Brown rice is better than white rice. It digests slowly. It's more of a complex carbohydrate, so you burn it slower, which means that the insulin that you secrete is also produced slower. You don't build up the sugar, the glucose in your system as fast, and it's steady. So for diabetics, it's actually a better alternative. I also use garlic, great for lowering blood pressure. Also taste, can't go wrong with garlic. Scallions, which are wonderful. I grow them in my garden, and you can do this very easily. Buy a bushel in the supermarket, plant it. You don't have to do anything major. Just plant it in soil, and it will grow on its own. Then you will have your own scallion garden. That was a wonderful find for me and cost saving. I also love Japanese sweet potatoes. They are purple in color, high in nutritional value, and they're utilized in Japan quite often in their baked goods and their candies. They also make ice cream out of it. It's a wonderful yam that is very sweet, and you can eat it by itself. So if you roast it or bake it, you can just eat it, and there's no need for butter or anything else. The more color is better. So the deeper the color, so purple yams are better than orange ones, just from a nutritional standpoint. Same thing with the salad greens. So having iceberg lettuce will give you fiber, but it won't give you the nutrients that you get from, let's say, a mixed green salad, which is deeper in color, purples and darker greens. So romaine lettuce, kale, arugula, those are the type of greens that you want to use so that you can actually get more nutrients in them. The other thing is tomatoes, fantastic form of vitamin C, lutein, and who doesn't love salsa? I use a mild salsa because for me, I don't like really spicy foods. I like flavorful ones. For those people who love spicy foods, it's great, but you have to be careful. It does cause other problems with your esophagus and your GI system. You don't realize it initially, but over time it does accumulate. Today I'm actually using these beautiful purple sweet potatoes, and I slice them up. I put them in a steamer, and I steam them for approximately 30 minutes. It depends on your stove. If you have electric, it's a little bit slower. If you have gas, it's a little bit faster. And I just slice them up, and I steam them, and they come out very moist and like this. So you can eat them as they are, like so. Very good. When I saute up the corn, I just use sweet corn. You can use roasted corn. Doesn't really matter. I only use it with a little bit of water in the pan. So I don't use oil or butter to try to saute up my ingredients. Less saturated fat, which is very important for your heart healthy diet. So for people that are trying to stay on a lower fat diet, you want to avoid the butters and the oils. Even olive oil and coconut oil. They're wonderful by themselves, but in only very small quantities. They're high in saturated fat as well as calories. So they're not exactly what we do recommend for monitoring calorie content. So you can do plant-based diets or become a vegan. However, it depends on how you cook the food and what you're using, so that could actually help your health. So if you're using saturated fats, which are different if you're using olives or you're using avocados, you're using things that are more plant-based in their true form, then what you're doing is you're unfortunately adding to your heart disease and your heart burden that causes the heart disease. This is what I tell my patients all the time in the hospital. I'm going to be cutting up these beautiful sweet potatoes. And what they look like is purple. The skin is the best part of the potato, okay? It has the most amount of fiber. You don't want to get rid of the skin. When you do use the potatoes, you want to use it with the skins. So what I do is I put these in a large spaghetti pot, the biggest one that you can find, with a colander on the bottom, some water, and then I steam them. It's very simple. The higher the heat, the less nutrients you get. It also affects your telomeres. So when you heat at a high temperature, you actually shorten your telomeres. The longer ones extend your life. So the best type of food to prepare, how to prepare your food, is through steaming. So I tend to steam. It's also easier. It doesn't cause as much heat in my kitchen. And in Texas, it's really hot. So I try to prevent that, and I just tend to steam it also, which works out better on all ends. Be careful about using plastic colanders. Sometimes you actually will melt them. So it's best to use a metal one. It withstands accidents, which can happen. So I use metal because I've had accidents with the plastic ones, and it wasn't very good. And you ruin your food, you ruin the pot, and plastic in general, if you heat it too high, it will melt. And if you don't see any melting, it will still emit the chemicals that they use to put in those plastics and will get into your food. So metal is always the best option. While we're actually steaming the purple Japanese sweet potatoes, it doesn't take very long to saute up the corn. I also tend to use brown rice. You don't have to use it. It makes it more filling because the more fiber that you have in your diet, the longer it takes to digest it and the fuller you become. So you don't feel like you're starving an hour after you eat, which the saturated fats help. So when you're eating saturated fat, it does decrease your appetite. However, it does clog arteries. So you're trying to minimize the saturated fat, and with the plant-based diet, you can eat more because it's less in calories. But if you're cooking with olive oil or butter, then you're decreasing the caloric intake, and you can eat less of it because it has a higher caloric content along with the saturated fat. So it's actually okay to eat multiple meals a day. I mean, even 5 meals a day with a plant-based diet that has no butter in it, because the caloric content is quite low, depending on what you're eating. That's the beauty of it. No calorie counting, no carb counting, which is a big problem when people are on insulin. So we try to stress the carb counting. However, if they're actually eating more fiber, it would solve a lot of issues. Fiber is your friend. It absorbs toxins. It makes you digest things easier. You will have the flow through easier. You know what I'm talking about. I don't have to say exactly the words that I'm talking about. And it absorbs the sugar. So it's okay to actually eat things that are a little more in glycemic index, like grapes and bananas and pineapple, because you're eating the fiber. Once you start to blend it, you start to process it in any way, and you're not eating the fiber, then it makes a difference. It's really the combinations of the foods that you're eating and how you're eating them that help with the glucose levels in your system. Steamed sweet potatoes are on my stove, and I've already pre-made my brown rice because brown rice does take longer than white rice, and anything that takes longer to cook also takes longer to digest. So the rapid 1 minute, 2 minute rice products out on the market, they're stripped of fiber and nutrients, and so that's why they can cook them faster. But brown rice in general, it takes about 30 to 40 minutes. If you have a rice cooker, that might take faster. But on the stove, it does take about 40 minutes. You have to pre-prepare it ahead of time and keep it in your refrigerator. So that way you actually have a staple that is healthy for you and easy to access once you want to use it. Otherwise, you're sitting there for 40 minutes cooking it. So what I do is every Sunday, I tend to prepare my foods. I prep my foods that I need so I can utilize them during the week, because I'm busy at work and I also have another business. So that makes it more difficult, especially if you have kids and you have spouses and you have lots of other things going on. Prepping it 1 day a week will make it so much easier than waiting until you have to make it during the week when you're super busy. So you just pick a time where you're not as busy to prep. And that way you also save money, and along with health benefits of not eating out so much, because eating out has a lot of hidden calories and sodium and saturated fats. So that's how I prevent that. What I'm going to do is bring it together. I use the sweet corn. You can use frozen or fresh, that's okay. and I saute it in water. People don't realize that you don't have to use Pam or any of those other substitutes to saute your vegetables, which is good to know since I don't want those extra calories or the saturated fats. And what I will do is bring together my products that I've already pre-prepared and pre-cooked, also minced. I love garlic for their properties. Such a great pungent spice or root or however you want to consider it. So what I do is I add everything together in a pot. Once I finish steaming the purple sweet potatoes, then I add in the cooked corn with the chili powder, the cumin, salt and pepper, and I add in the cooked rice, the the garlic, just heat it up and mix it together so that the flavors come together. And it looks like this. Beautiful color, fantastic smell. So, and I love tasting it because if it tastes good, even before you cook it, it's a good sign. I start out with small amounts. It depends on how many servings you're making. If you're making 2 servings and you find that a fourth of a teaspoon of cumin is not enough, you can add more. So I start with a small amount first and then I add to taste. I start with a half teaspoon of chili powder for 2 servings, as well as some salt and pepper to taste. The less salt that you have, the better, because it does not take much sodium to increase your blood pressure. And I start with a fourth of a teaspoon of cumin, and then I just add more to taste. For you, you can start there and add more as you see fit. Sometimes I add up to another tablespoon of cumin or chili powder or pepper, depending on how spicy or flavorful I like it. That's the beauty of cooking. You can add or add more, but it's very hard to delete it. So once you do it, you have to add more ingredients to actually counterbalance the taste. And in doing so, that makes it a little bit more challenging for those that are not inclined to cook. I used to be that way. I've gotten better with time and also with experience. I used to only go by the recipes that I used, and then I found that if I didn't like it, I would have to add more of something to balance something else out and add a different ingredient to get to that taste point that I really liked. And it was never really adding more salt. It was more adding more flavorful types of ingredients. So now we're going to heat up the tortillas. I use chickpea tortillas. I will do that in about 350 degrees for about 5 minutes just to warm them up. On the side, I just use a simple salad. I use mixed greens, which are so colorful and full of nutrients. It's a medley with arugula and purple lettuce along with, I think it's different types of arugula. I just get the blend. So that makes it simpler. And I use these beautiful cherry tomatoes and I throw it on top. If you want to add a dressing, I do recommend oil-free dressings or a sweet vinegar to balance it out so you don't use the oil by itself. There are many different types of vinegars. If you go to an oil and vinegar shop, they usually have a variety of them that you can actually taste, and you'd be surprised the variety that's out there along with the taste. They have many different flavors. Things that you wouldn't even expect are out there, and they're coming from other countries, and even if they came from us, from the US, it's still very good, but you get to taste them and see what you like the most. So there are other ways to make dressings than just pouring on ranch or some creamy dressing, which we tend to do a lot in the United States. So I'm putting the scallions, clove of garlic, minced. Well, I minced it and then I cut it up. Some sweet potato. I also use black beans. Great fiber also, as well as protein. So I use ones that have low sodium. This one has 30 milligrams of sodium in half a cup, and there's usually about 2.5 cups to 3 cups a serving. For people that have to watch their sodium, I recommend that you get low sodium beans, or you get the dried ones, which are even better. They're also less expensive. They're not as convenient because if you don't soak them overnight, then you can't use them. So you have to soak them in water. Otherwise, if you get the can, make sure that you get the ones that say either low sodium or no sodium, and even no sodium still has sodium. So just watch out for that. And this has 7 grams of fiber for a half a cup of beans, which is great. Also, you're getting fiber from the sweet potato, the rice, the green leafy vegetables, the mixed greens. So all of that has fiber. You're not missing out on fiber, and you're not missing out on protein. That's the other thing. People always worrying about how much protein do they need, and they're forgoing how much fiber they actually really need. And we need a lot of fiber, more fiber than protein for our kidney function also, because our kidneys cannot handle a lot of fiber. The plant-based fats are not as bad as the animal fats. I love beans, and it doesn't matter what kind of beans. I use all types of them, and it just depends on the taste and what I'm looking to accomplish. But I generally use black beans, navy beans, kidney beans, red. I also love pinto beans. I use northern beans. So there are a variety of beans out there, and they have slightly different flavors, and you just figure out which one you like. So for this, I'm using black beans, but I could use something else too. That's the beauty of it. It still will taste okay. So if you don't have black beans, you can use a different type of bean. These are black soybeans. If you don't want to use soy, you can use plain black beans. You can use northern beans. So this type of recipe, you can alternate, which is the beauty of it. And you don't actually have to use brown rice. You can make it really simple. You can use the corn with the sweet potatoes, and you can put in different things like mushrooms. Just make sure they're cooked. So there's lots of different varieties of tacos that you can make that will give you that meaty flavor. So mushrooms are fantastic for the meaty flavors. If you're just so focused on the flavor, then I would use like a portobello mushroom. That makes a wonderful mushroom taco. It's the chewiness of the mushroom that makes people feel like they're eating meat. That's what brings out that the flavor of the mushroom is the chewiness. And people think that they're eating a meat with the mushroom. So, and you can use it with other ingredients that are plant-based, and that will taste wonderful as well. You can use the same spices. The beauty about tacos is that you can make them any way you want. So they automatically look curled, which is useful when you're actually curling them after you put the taco filling in. So the next step is to just utilize what we cooked in the pot and mix everything together. Beautiful purple sweet potatoes. If you don't have the Japanese sweet potatoes available, you can use yams. If you want, you can use canned. If you can't find any fresh sweet potatoes, you can use the canned ones too. Just depends on where you're located. So I have these beautiful tacos, okay? And what I'll do is I will put some salsa on the inside. And you can use avocado to make it stick together, or you can use old-fashioned toothpicks. So the next part is to actually just put the salad greens on the side with the cherry tomatoes, like so. If you don't want to use the salsa, you can always set it on the side, or you can put it on the top. And there you have this lovely plate of tantalizing tacos with a garden salad on the side. And this beautiful plate of salad greens with plant-based tortillas from chickpeas. And you also have the wonderful purple sweet potatoes with scallions, garlic, black beans or black soybeans, and corn. Very simple, wonderfully flavorful. Until next time, this is Laura from Feeling Fabulous. Thank you. Bon appetit.